Hi there, and welcome to Plant CEO. In today's episode, I'd like to welcome Shane Ryan, the founder of FIID. Hi, Shane. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you on the show. I think we're sharing the same weather at the moment with snow, both in Dublin, right, and here in London.
Exactly. I'm looking out on a sunny or a cool, cold, wintry Dublin city here at the moment.
Yeah. So let's start by you telling me a little bit more about what FIID is.
So FIID is we're a plant-based food company, and basically what we do is we bring together the nature's best vegetables, legumes, and spices. We craft them into really crave-worthy plant-based meals, and then we serve them in what we consider the most convenient format possible. So all of our meals are served in a plastic pouch. And what that means is that we're able to extend our shelf life of all of our products to up to 18 months without the need for any additives or preservatives. So really what it is the ultimate in terms of convenience. And what it does for our consumer is it means that they always have a really nutritious, nourishing, warming meal in the cupboard whenever they need it.
Yeah, and it's vacuum packed in terms of how
it's not vacuum packed per se. It's actually, we use a process called sous vide. So it's an old French cooking technique. So what actually happens is all of the ingredients go into the pouch raw, and then we seal that pouch, and then it goes through a sous vide. So basically it goes into a water bath, and that cooks everything to perfection. It kills all of the bacteria and everything like that, and it extends the shelf life naturally.
Right. I guess that water bath is it boiling when it's cooking? Is that the sort of
temperature? Yeah, it's 120 degrees, so it's quite hot.
Right.
But there's a lot. Yeah, it's a really interesting process.
Yeah, getting to where you are today, and you've been very successful with the launch of this new range of products, but the road hasn't been that easy for you from the beginning stages. So it'd be great to know about the process that you went through and also your background story.
Yeah, I suppose saying the road wasn't easy is a bit of an understatement, and it has been a roller coaster. I suppose we launched FIID in its current guise about 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, December 2018. But I've kind of been on this journey, for want of a better word, for about 5 years, maybe a little bit longer now at this point. I suppose the genesis of the idea or how I launched myself into entrepreneurship was my background is in hospitality. So I've always worked with food, but kind of in high-end hospitality environments. And my most recent role was working with Gary Rhodes, great British chef in the Middle East, so in Abu Dhabi. I don't know how familiar anyone is with the Middle East, but it's quite a high pressure environment. It was really long hours, particularly in hospitality. We were working 6 or 7 days a week. I clocked up about 90 hours sometimes. And I found that I wasn't really eating, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't doing anything that was giving myself goodness, I guess. And I ended up having a phone call one evening with my parents, and my dad kind of commented, and he's like, "Shane, you don't seem great. Like, is everything okay?" And I said, "I'm actually really struggling at the moment with the workload and the lack of balance in my life." And he basically said that, you need to prioritize like the basics, like those foundational elements that are gonna help you perform at your best. And one of those things was eating. And at the time, I wasn't really eating at all. I was grazing, particularly working in hospitality. You're just picking food as you go. You're not sitting down. You're not having 3 square meals a day. And he actually sent me a follow-up email the next day with kind of an action plan of how we're going to get Shane back on track, which is just the kind of guy that my father is.
Nice.
But interestingly, I was 23 at the time, and I actually didn't eat vegetables up until that point. I wasn't a real veg guy. But on the back of that call, I kind of discovered how great vegetables and plant-based eating is, and I felt amazing. I was totally convinced of the transformative effects of eating really good natural food.
Yeah.
And so
was that, by the way, your dad who sort of suggested that you eat more vegetables in your diet?
It was. Yeah, he said, like, you have to get nutrients. You need nutrients. You don't look good. you don't feel good, you're not acting well, you need some goodness at a very basic level. So that was the advice, and it worked. It was amazing, and I still look back on that moment as kind of a light bulb moment. So I've kind of always been quite entrepreneurial minded. I always felt that I would start something myself. I didn't think it was going to be when I was 24, but it was around the same time that kind of healthy food was really growing internationally. There was a real turn in how people were approaching food, and I had an idea for kind of a healthy, fast casual restaurant, because my background was in restaurants. I love hospitality. I love that part of the business, creating experiences for people. So I came up with an idea. I pitched it to my parents. They said, okay, well, if you want to move back into our home, you want to move back here, you need a business plan, because we're not going to take you back here unless you're taking this seriously. So I created a small business plan. I pitched it to them again. They said, all right, I think you've thought this through. I moved back home. I worked on a more elaborate business plan, which to this day I kind of shudder thinking about. It was 120 pages of graphs and diagrams, and like totally ridiculous and totally unnecessary. But I studied business in school, right? So that's what I thought you had to do to start a business. I thought you needed this tome or this Bible to run your business. And after about 6 months, I realized I don't have €500,000 to open a restaurant in Dublin, which is what it costed at the time. It was incredibly expensive. So I pivoted the idea a little bit. And what I ended up doing was kind of removing the need for a bricks and mortar restaurant. I thought this was genius. So I was calling it a restaurant in the cloud, but it was me on a bicycle delivering meals to offices around Dublin city centre. So we had one lunch box on the menu, a different lunch every single day. People ordered on an app. I was cycling to Smithfield Market here in central Dublin every single morning at 4 a.m, picking up all the fresh ingredients, then cycling onwards to the kitchen, preparing all the food myself, collating the orders, jumping on my bike at 11:30 with a box, a little bit like the Deliveroo drivers now that you'd see, the cyclists. I had something very similar.
Yeah.
And then delivering to offices around the city. And so that was my first foray into entrepreneurship, which was a little bit of a catastrophe, I would say. It definitely took its toll on me. It was my first time doing anything on my own.
Yeah.
And the working kind of solitary took a huge toll on me. And the business, it also wasn't really working. You know, some days you'd have 50 orders, some days you'd have 0. And
let's not forget about cycling with that heavy load, I guess, as well. I mean, cycling can be, you know, I'm a cyclist and it's quite fun. But it's all about weight, isn't it, really?
Yeah, fun. It wasn't fun for me at that time. It wasn't something that I was looking forward to. What I did get was really great, strong legs out of that experience. But it was a real challenge, and you don't know how many hills there are in Dublin until you're cycling around with 50 salads on your back. And also, you know, Dublin isn't renowned for amazing weather. And I launched it in the winter time, and I think it was one of the harshest winters. I'll never forget the weather that year. So I kind of ran that for, I think, about 9 months. And actually, you know, I would say that business almost broke me. I turned into a bit of a shadow of myself. It was really, really hard. It was one of those little businesses that got a lot of press attention because it was a little bit innovative. It was really interesting. I was quite good at getting press, and I was quite good on the social media side. So it looked like it was very successful. And you know, at the time, like, a lot of my personal sense of self-worth, or like ego, I suppose, was tied up in the business. And actually, in the background, it was all failing. It was crumbling. It wasn't even a business, but it was so shaky, on a really shaky foundation. Because I was doing everything for the first time with little or no input from anybody else. And so when I realized, I suppose, when I was honest with myself about the fact that it was failing, that I was going down the drain, I took that very much to heart, and I felt that, oh, I'm the failure. The reason it didn't work is because I'm awful. I should never have done this. I'm not the right person to do it. So I remember one afternoon, I took it was a weekend, I think it was a Saturday, and I dragged myself down to the gym. And at the time, like I didn't even want to be around people. I felt so awful. And I went into one of the studios so I could be on my own. And I was doing burpees, and I just burst into tears. I just started crying for no reason. And I didn't know why I was crying. I was totally confused. So I just continued doing the burpees. Tears were rolling down my face. And I then just packed up my stuff, ran home, trying to figure out what the hell is going on here. So eventually I text my mom and I said, listen, are you going to be at home tomorrow? I really need to talk to you. So I came home. They knew something was up because as soon as I walked in the door, my mom said, Shane's here. And my dad came out and we sat down at the table and they were like, what's going on? And I said, I've really fucked this up. The whole thing is falling apart. I don't know what to do. And they said, we know what to do. Pack it in, come home, start again. There's no big deal. Like, failure happens. Failure is normal. It's a part of life. And the second they said that, this huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. Like this, I could not believe the impact of someone just saying, it's okay. This isn't a big deal. Don't worry about it. Like, I didn't have any debt. I didn't have any loans. It was a really small little bootstrap business. Like, I was doing like €5,000 a month max. So it wasn't a big deal. But to me, it was a huge deal because there was so much of me wrapped up in it. So I packed it all in. I think on the Wednesday, I had moved back home to my parents who live in the west of the country.
And your parents, by the way, seem very wise.
Yeah,
what's been their background actually?
They like to remind me as well how wise they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, neither of them are in business actually at all. They're just good people, and we have a really great relationship. And I think I'm really lucky that I'm able to come to them and talk to them about things.
Very positive to say it's okay to fail, and actually a lot of successful entrepreneurs are actually failing every day. Something fails, right? But it makes a difference between the ones who, fail and then give up, and the ones that don't give up, like yourself. So, and also you said something quite interesting about your ego, and I think it's also important to separate your ego from the business to some degree, and where you are, the I is not part of your business. Like, if you think that, oh, I failed at this, or I'm a bad person, it's actually not that, right? It's,
I do think. Well, on the one hand, I think it's really, really important that your identity isn't your business. That you are. That there's value in you as a person beyond the fact that you're an entrepreneur or you're working a business or you have a career or whatever. I think can get quite toxic when those two things are really tightly interlinked. I actually do think that a certain amount of ego is really important when you're in entrepreneurship. I think insecurity and ego, you think that those two don't are kind of diametrically opposed, but I actually think both of those are necessary when you're starting or running a business. I think on the ego side, I think it's really important, especially when it gets really hard, to not give up. And I think sometimes ego is a good thing in that it keeps you going. I cannot let this fail. So you kind of persevere through that. And then on the insecurity side, I think it's important to be constantly questioning everything and trying to improve yourself because you think perhaps I'm not good enough. And I think that's as good a trait for an entrepreneur to have. I think both of those are really, really important in I suppose measured amounts. I think you can't have too much of either of them, but I think if you have both of those, I think it's really important, at least in my case.
Right, and I think it's also for a startup, you do need that founder story, don't you? Need the founder to have that mission and drive in terms of what their end goals are, right? And yours is to create convenience, healthy food that is good for yourself and for the environment, right?
Yeah, what we're trying to do is for there to always be access to really good, healthy food that's insanely convenient. I think in my case, like oftentimes when I'm really tired and it's really late, I'll turn to something that's very convenient but not healthy at all, like a takeaway or a pizza or something. And oftentimes in that moment, we really need really good quality food. So That's very much the driving force behind FIID, is to make sure that that never ever happens, that people always have access to very good, natural, healthy food in a really convenient format.
Yep. So can you tell me about your product range?
Yeah, so we've a range of 5 quick cook meals, and they're all natural. There's no additives or preservatives. They're all high in protein. They all give you 3 of your 5 a day. So there's about 250 grams of vegetables in each 400-gram meal. And they're all gluten-free, dairy-free, or refined sugar-free. So really good quality ingredients, and there's nothing on that ingredient deck that you wouldn't cook with yourself at home. And that's really important for us, as well as our consumers, the people who interact with FIID, that, you know, they can recognize all those ingredients and they know they're getting ingredients that they know and they interact with themselves.
Yeah. So thank you for sending me your samples here. So I've got the smoky Mexican black chili, and just looking at the nutritional information. So from one 400-gram serving, is this for one person? You would expect?
Yeah.
They're
designed to be one full meal for a person, but people often use them, you know, as the base of a meal for 2 or 3 people. You can add, you know, with this one, you can add guacamole, rice, baked potato. They're quite versatile in that regard. But they're at their essence, they were for one person, but actually a lot of people use them for 2 or 3 people.
Yeah. And so on this one, because it's I think because of a lot of the black bean content, you've actually got 15.6 grams of fiber, but also 18.8 grams of protein. So it's that one's quite cool. And then we've got this one, which is the rich sun-dried tomato and lentil ragu. That looks amazing.
Like a bolognese.
Yeah. And then we've got
interestingly, we were at an event about a year ago now, and we had an Italian guy approach us, and he was really interested in the ragu. And, you know, Italians, they're really into their food, and they're really protective of Italian cuisine. And, you know, I'm confident about that dish, but I got a little bit nervous when this Italian guy was trying the ragu, and he tried it, and he said, "That's as good as my grandmother's ragu."
Wow, amazing.
For me, that's the ultimate compliment coming from an Italian, right?
Yeah. Do they tend to put a lot of lentils in the ragu too, like in a traditional sense?
No, not necessarily. Not at all, actually, no.
Yeah. Normally when they're doing the pasta sauces, it's mainly like tomato and just, you know, herbs and then last one here is the hearty Moroccan chickpea tagine.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is great. So they all look amazing. So I'm going to try that for my lunch today. Thank you so much. So in terms of this product range, you're also working on some new iterations of version of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're quite consumer-led as well, which is really great. We're quite lucky in that we have I feel that we have a really good channels of communication with the people who buy FIID. Like they're really quick to message us, to tell us what they want, to tell us what they love, tell us what they don't like. And really what people were asking for was more curries. People were looking for comforting curry meals from us. So we said, absolutely, that's something that we can do. It really works in this format. I personally love curries. So at the end of last year, 2020, we launched an aromatic lentil and sweet potato curry, which is very similar to, I suppose, a Thai red curry. That was kind of what it was based on. Again, extremely comforting, a really, really good dish. It's actually become our best seller, and we launched it in November. So people have really taken to that, which is amazing to see for me.
Yeah.
Today we're launching a new product as well. We're launching chana masala. Again, like super comforting, really rich, a really, really great blend of spices, perfect for a winter's day like today, actually. And then in 4 weeks' time, we have another one, which is another chickpea curry, a coconut and chickpea curry.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Very similar to a korma, actually.
Right. Okay. Great. So in terms of your retail channels that you're in at the moment, you've been quite successful at getting these into a lot of places. Can you talk about some of the retailers that you're in today?
Sure. So when we launched back in December 2018, we launched at 12 stores in Ireland, which, it's not a lot. It's a very, very small
a great
sample.
start, though.
Yeah, it's a nice little start, and I'm actually very grateful for it because it allowed us to figure out where's the best place in the store to place it. We built really great relationships with those store managers, and they're still some of our best stores in the country, actually. But from those 12 stores, we've grown the business now to 800 stores here in Ireland. So we're across the full market. We're with Tesco, SuperValu, and Dunnes, as well as lots of independent and convenience stores around the country. So we've got pretty much, I'd say, about 95% coverage now in Ireland.
Wow.
Which is really nice, which means we're extremely available for people, which is very important for a convenient product.
Yeah.
And then in the UK, we're with Ocado, which is an amazing platform for us. 2020 was fantastic on Ocado. We grew 150% there. And we're also with Whole Foods Market, as well as some other convenience stores in the UK.
And is there any retailers that you'd love to be with in the UK, for example?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of our growth strategy is the UK. Where we love to be, across the full market with the multiples, like Sainsbury's, Waitrose, Tesco. We definitely see a place for FIID in those stores when we get to that place. We're not quite there yet. I think there's lots of things that we're trying to figure out ourselves as a business. I think that's really important, that we're trying things, figuring out what works and what doesn't work. I think what I really want is for our home market as Ireland to be working extremely well before we start taking our attention elsewhere and looking into other markets. Yeah. So the UK is definitely something that we're working towards, just not this year.
Yeah, I have seen some supermarkets, maybe some of their own brands or some external ones, who have similar types of products in pouches that you cook. Where would you say, apart from the vegan side, is more of the USPs from yours to other own brands? Yeah,
I think a private label is a part of doing business in food retail. It's inevitable. I think what we really provide is a little bit more intrinsic value to the consumer. So people aren't necessarily buying into FIID because it's a functional product, right? Because private label serves the same function. It's tasty and it's convenient and it's good value, right? Those are things that FIID is also at a very basic level. We also have other intrinsic benefits for the consumer. For example, all of our meals are 400 grams, where all the competitors that you're referring to, they're 250 to they're 295 grams, which aren't really that filling for a person. So really what we were working towards was that when you ate FIID, you didn't need anything else afterwards. It was more sustained satiety throughout the day. So that was a really important differentiator for us, as well as the fact that we have a social element to the business, whereby every time you buy one, we donate a meal to a child in the developing world. And so far, we've donated over 500,000 meals to children in across 14 different developing countries with our charity partner, Mary's Meals.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so and I think also people like to buy into a really nice story, and I think there's a lot to be said for challenger brands and coming up against private label and supermarkets and the big brands. I think people like to be part of that, and that's something that I'm really seeing now in recent times, how people our consumers particularly are interacting with the story. When we talk to them about these are the challenges we're facing, or this is what's happening, and they really celebrate that, and that's really amazing for me as a founder and the rest of the team to see that we have people who kind of have our back and are rooting for us. So.
Yeah, for sure. One question about the plastic packaging. It's quite hard to find any packaging that's recyclable. I know there's maybe Tetra Pak are doing something, but you have to go to a certain location where they take it and then they recycle it. I think maybe some of Ella's Kitchen products use it. Did you look at specifically around the packaging, and do you see that there's a way to convert the plastic to something a bit more sustainable?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the plastic packaging is something that we probably delayed the launch by, I'd say, 4 months, because it was something that we put a lot of thought into. The simple fact is before we launched this ambient range, I did 1 year as a chilled brand. So we did the same type of products in chilled format in a fully recyclable pot with a compostable cardboard sleeve around it, and it was in a chilled environment. So because it was chilled, it had a 22-day shelf life, and I was doing a lot of deliveries myself at the time, and I was going in and out of supermarkets, and I could see the amount of waste that was being generated. So like, I don't know, not a lot of people know this, but about between 10 and 15% of all food that sits in a chiller and sits in fresh in a supermarket goes to waste. That means that it gets dumped. So even if it's in 100% compostable packaging, it still gets sent to landfill. And it's not just a waste of the food, it's also a waste of all the resources that went into making that, went into transporting that, went into developing it. That's all getting sent to landfill. So I am, as much as anyone else, incredibly sustainability minded, but I don't think that sustainability is black and white. I don't think that 100% compostable or recyclable packaging is the be all and end all. I think for us, what we've managed to do with our packaging is eliminated food waste entirely from our supply chain. So we have 0% food waste right now, which is unheard of for a food brand, particularly in wet food. So I think like the plastic packaging, it isn't perfect. We know it isn't perfect. It's not recyclable through conventional channels. Now, it is 100% plastic. And in countries like France and the Netherlands, they do accept that pouch in conventional recycling streams, just not in Ireland and the UK.
Okay.
So what we're constantly looking for ways to for alternative packaging that would be more sustainable. But unfortunately, because of the process that gives us the long shelf life that eliminates the food waste, you can't put recyclable or compostable packaging through that process. It would just disintegrate because it's hot water.
Yeah, that 120 degrees would just
it would be counterintuitive.
Right.
So we looked into that same system that Ella's Kitchen uses.
Okay.
TerraCycle, we looked into that.
TerraCycle, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredibly expensive. It's insanely expensive and it's prohibitive for us.
Right.
Where we're at right now. Well, we are looking at other ways that we can take back the packaging in the interim, and other systems that would allow us to reuse the packaging.
Yeah.
It's really important to us. Like, we don't want to be adding to landfill. We don't want to be adding to the problem. So it's just about figuring out what's the right thing that works for us.
Yeah, I think with the TerraCycle, it's also not everywhere. All cities will accept the return of that.
Exactly.
So that's part of the challenge, right, as well. But I'd love to see.
What I don't want, Dan, is to greenwash. Like, we don't want. We're like, on our packaging, where I don't know what version of the packaging you have there, but like, we're incredibly transparent. Where we have a recycling symbol on the pack, but we also point out that, listen, this may not be recyclable with your recycling partner. So just check that, because what we don't want is people to see a recycling symbol, add it to their green bin, and then for that to contaminate their recycling stream. So we don't want that either. So it's about being transparent and trying to figure out a solution to this together.
Yeah. I hope more companies start developing, alternative materials that can.
Yeah, and they are. They're like, I mean, Mars just launched a 100% recyclable pouch in collaboration with the recycling company for their Uncle Ben's microwave rice. So that just got launched. That was just launched, I think 2 weeks ago now. So that's very, very recent, and it's a huge development, which we knew lots of recycling companies or packaging companies were looking into. So solutions are coming. It's just about when they trickle down to small companies like us, so that we're able to use them. As soon as that day comes, like, we will be the first. We'll be the first to adopt any sort of recyclable packaging or more sustainable packaging.
Yeah, great. And you're also selling online with your direct-to-consumer approach. How's that sales channel? How does that compare against the traditional grocery retailers, the bricks and mortars?
It's much smaller. I have to say, it's about 10% of our business at the moment, but it is a channel that we see a lot of opportunity in. So it's something that we're putting a lot of energy into as a team. Yeah. It's for us, like, it's about being as available as possible to people. So not everyone has an opportunity to go to the supermarket. For some people, it's much more convenient to order online. So that was really the reason for it. Obviously, when COVID hit, we were so thankful that we had the fulfillment center, that we had the website, that we had a full back-end system and processes set up. So really, like we saw massive, like 500% growth in that channel in the first 3 months of COVID. It was massive. And it's performed really, really well consistently throughout the year. So it's something we're putting a lot more energy into, and we see a lot more opportunity. And it's also something that I get quite excited about, because you can create much more experience, much better experience for your consumer. You can have a much better, stronger, more real relationship with people as well. So I love, like, when we send out an email, we send out maybe a fortnightly email to our mailing list, and I love how people reply, asking questions or making comments, like, to the email. I just love having that kind of relationship with people. So it's something that I'm quite excited about, and I'm looking forward to developing even more.
Yeah, great. And one thing that you've been quite proud of is self-funding as well, like bootstrapping the business by yourself, waiting for the revenue to grow and growing the business very organically. And you've also now got some cool strategic investors. It'd be great to know a little bit more about, especially the two.
So we were self-funded up until August. We bootstrapped the business, which was extremely hard. It was a very, very hard thing to do. And, we thought about raising money. It was just myself and my colleague Elliot for a long time. We talked about, we need to raise money. It would make things so much easier. But at the end of the day, the amount of time and effort it takes to raise money, to go out and meet people and build your business plan to attract funding, it just took me away from the business too much. And all I want to do is run a business. I just want to grow a business. I don't want to chase funding. I know funding is a part of scaling businesses, but where we were, I just felt my time and energy were better served growing the business to a point where we could go to investors and say, this is what we've done. It's pretty impressive. And that's what we did. We were profitable in our first year. In 2020, we grew our business 80% in the pandemic. We tripled our team. So we were 2, we're now 7. And then we went to a couple of investors. We said, this is what I want to do. I need a little bit of money to be able to do that with some flexibility and a little bit of peace of mind. And they said, absolutely, we'd love to support a business like this. And so I suppose fundraising or raising huge amounts of money, it's often like glorified, particularly in startup circles. And it's very much come from the technology side of startups, I think, but it's trickled down now into food, where people, it's almost an obsession. And I think if you focus on building a business and the right metrics like sales and profitability, and if you show you care about money, to the point that you're not spending money that you don't have, then raising strategic, good quality funds when the time is right is going to be so much easier. And that was the case for us. We attracted 2 incredible investors who I'm so privileged to work with, and the 2 of them are very different. The one is Kevin Lane, who's the former CEO of Ornua, which is a $2.5 billion international company, who brings an amazing network, an amazing strategic way of working, who's taught me a lot, because I'm right now in our team, I'm the least experienced. I call myself like the intern CEO, because I'm learning how to be the CEO of a business now. Whereas before I was just a founder. There's so many people on our team who are so much better at what they do than me. So I have Kevin to lean on and to kind of support me in that process and in that journey. Then we also have Sam Denigan, who's a lot of people know as the founder and CEO of Strong Roots, which is an incredibly inspirational business, who've done amazing things. And to have the 2 of them who are not just financially invested, but also very invested in the success of the business and excited about what we're doing, for me, that's really, really important and much more important than just someone giving them money, because I think sometimes money is cheap.
Yeah. And, Sam Denigan's, Strong Roots business is hugely successful here in the UK
Fantastic.
as well, and obviously in Ireland, but now launching, I think last year, was it, into America as well. So yeah, that whole frozen food category for plant-based food is super interesting, isn't it? The way that's growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really, really exciting category as well.
And does he encourage you to also do a frozen product, or not really? He's happy with, your ambient product, and especially with your skilled experience.
I think Strong Roots are doing a good enough job in frozen. They don't need someone like me. Yeah, I don't think there's room. I don't think there's room for anyone else. I think they're doing an amazing job, and what they're working on within that business is incredible. I am consistently impressed by everything that they do. I think what we can take from the Strong Roots journey is they've built the blueprint for how to scale an incredible business in the right way, and I can learn a lot from what they did, the mistakes they made, what worked, what didn't work, and that's very much what I'm taking from that relationship. I lean on Sam quite a bit, just to problem solve and just to take as much as I can, basically, because it's an amazing business. If we can emulate the success of that business, even a fraction of it, I'd be incredibly proud.
Yeah. In general, what would you say are the health benefits for eating plant-based food?
I think the naturalness is really important. I don't have a science background, so my brother does, and we often have really interesting conversations around this kind of thing. But so personally, I like to focus as much as possible on natural food. And I know myself, and it's of course anecdotal evidence, but I know I feel better when I eat natural food. So yeah, that's, for me, the benefits are, a clear mind, that feeling of positivity that comes from eating natural food. And I suppose my journey in plant-based was very much from an environmental point of view. So I'd be quite passionate about the environment, and I suppose I saw the impact of animal agriculture on the environment, and just saw plant-based as a way for me to have an impact on a personal level. So that was really what led me to plant-based myself. Now I'm not 100% vegan, but I would be mostly plant-based as much as possible.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, perfect. So thank you so much for coming on the show. And yeah, looking forward to see your new product launches, and making sure that the product is a lot more available in other retailers, obviously here in the UK too, now that you've got great coverage in Ireland. So yeah, thank you again so much.
Thanks a million. It was great.
Okay. Take care. See you.
Thanks a million.
Bye.